Hello. Waiting for it to come on. Hi, how you doing? I can't hear you. Let's see. Hopefully you can hear me.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Cool. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah. So yeah. Thanks for. I can hear a little crackle actually. Thanks for coming. You're beaming over here from the US, where you are. Where are you now? Texas.
Texas. Yes. We
Texas.
just
Yeah.
had tornadoes come through yesterday, so that's the exciting life of living in Texas.
Wow. Yeah. And so you did. We're here to kind of chat through the MDS Marathon De Sables for those people who are about to fly over and start the race, which starts on the 4th of April this year. And for anybody who might be listening or might watch this broadcast later, who might be interested in doing it in the future, or doing an equivalent multi-stage desert ultra, which is obviously a bit different from others, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Yeah, it's a whole different mindset and a whole different field of things you need to overcome, like sleep deprivation and camping out and, lack of hygiene, lack of fresh food, and just the fatigue on the body of running day after day after day after day. So, yeah, it's a completely different sort of aspect to doing a single stage race for sure. Yeah, but exciting.
And taking it back. Yeah, taking it back to give us a little bit of an insight of when you did yours, because you've done it twice, haven't you?
Yes, I did. My first multi-stage was actually Kalahari Extreme Marathon in 2013. And then I went to Marathon de Sables in 2014 and again in 2016. And I went back again because the first time I went, I just felt like I got absolutely beaten up by the desert. I thought I would go out there and have an amazing race and get an amazing result. And I did finish and I did have an amazing time, but I just knew that I was capable of doing better. So I wanted to go back and just sort of, go through that again and just give it my best shot. So knowing what it was like out there and going sort of fully armed and prepared. So, but amazing experiences. So, yeah.
And for those who don't know what it is, it's 250K, is that right, in 7 days?
In 7 days, 6 stages. So basically, in sort of simple terms, it's a marathon a day, and then one day you do 2 marathons, which they give you 2 days to do it in. So most people tend to finish during that night. So then you have what they call the rest day the next day. Where you lounge about camp and get your feet up and rest ready for a marathon the next day. But some people do take into that next day to finish as well. So, yeah, it's a really tough course. And, over 7 days. And, you sleep in tents of up to 8 people. And there is, Marathon de Sables can be anything from 900 people to 1,500. So it's kind of the blue ribbon of multi-stage racing. Yeah.
And did you initially have imposter syndrome when you entered that first time, and when you turned up? Did you think, I shouldn't be here, this is not my kind of, I don't know if I can do this, everyone else looks much more professional?
Oh, absolutely. And it was only my second multi-stage, so I still didn't really know what I was doing. There was a lot of learning to be done. But definitely when you're on the start line, you just think everyone's more experienced and, a much better athlete than you are. But in actual fact, everyone's thinking the same thing. So once you realize that, then you can overcome that. And even the second time I went back, I did so much better. And it was the second last day, the marathon day after the long day, they have the first top 200 runners start in the second wave. So they have the slower runners go first and then the top 200. And I was in the top 200. Talk about imposter syndrome. Then I was like super nervous. I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing in this group? But it also fills you with confidence, but a little bit of trepidation too.
Yeah, one of when I was a journalist, one of my ex-colleagues, Davinda, she did it in 2018, I think, or 2017. And she did it off, and I think it's really important to emphasize that anybody can do it. She did it whilst being, I think she was associate editor, very full-on job, and did it on 12 weeks training using Wales as training, and managed it. So for anybody who is listening or listening to this back, then if it's something I think you want to do, anything's possible, isn't it?
Oh, totally. And, you know, Marathon des Sables is set up that a lot of people walk the majority of the course. So even if you're not a super strong runner, you can still get to the finish line. It's all about just that, you know, relentless forward motion. Just keep walking, get a fast walk going and keep moving forward, and you will get to the finish line. And it really is mind over matter, because if you're marathon fit, I believe you can do Marathon des Sables. It really takes a whole different element of mental strength and preparation with all your kit as well to be able to survive the week, more so than athletic ability. It is certainly something that everybody can do in their lives. And yeah, maybe it's not going to be Marathon des Sables, but another multi-stage. There's lots of others out there as well in amazing locations around the world. Some are self-sufficient, like Marathon des Sables, where you carry all your kit, and others are a little bit nicer, where they cook for you and things like that too. So you choose which one suits you best.
And we're obviously really excited because we've got one of the Girls Run the World clients who will be flying out to do this race. So I must get in touch with her actually and say, you know, tell us how it goes during the race. Do you know what her number is in terms of tracking her?
No, she's going to put that up in the next day or two. But yeah, Lucy.
Right.
So we'll be keeping an eye out for her post on Facebook, and yeah, we'll share that on Girls Run the World, because I'm sure she would love to receive messages. That's one of the unique things at Marathon des Sables, is that you can email competitors and they get that in camp that afternoon, which is amazing. Like, that is a great way to motivate people when you're feeling like you're having a rough time, to get messages from back home of people, and even from strangers, just, you know, willing you on and being inspired by you. That's amazing. So if you get the chance, yeah, we'll share Lucy's race number once she puts that up, and how to email, because I'm sure she'd love to hear from all of us with some sort of message of motivation and inspiration.
Yeah. And so let's take it back to talking about, for those people who are going to be doing it, or for people who maybe watch this back later, what are the best things as you're going in? We're under a week, aren't we? Under a week? Yes,
Under a
before
week, yes.
race day. So what do people want to be starting to think about now?
Now, well, definitely rest. You need to get as much sleep as you can get from now and from when the race starts as well. And just having as much sleep as you can get, looking after yourself, eating lots of fresh fruit and vegetables, just to keep that immune system up, because while you're out there, sanitary conditions are a little lower than normal and you're not getting your normal vitamins. So if you can look after yourself prior, then that's great. And also, when you're there, just having a plan for how you're going to rest and recover when you're in camp. So it's not too late to think about that, but having a plan for each day when you get in. You know, you're going to get your socks off, your shoes off, get your feet up in the air. And what are you going to have as a recovery shake and your recovery meal, just to get that recovery process started, because you only have that limited time, you know, possibly less than 10 hours before you start running again. So really important to be thinking about that. And one thing I did want to say is, I know everyone that's going now will have their bags packed, their weights are all secured, but do yourself a favor now and throw in just a little treat. You'll thank me sometime during the week, but it might be a bag of peanut M&Ms or a crushed up small bag of salt and vinegar crisps, but just something else, you know, 50, 100 grams. It's not going to make or break your race to have that in your bag, but just an extra treat will really see you through as well. So yeah, get that in the bag.
Is there anything, talking about the bags? I mean, a lot of people who have been training for this will have probably gone backwards and forwards about what to take and what's in their bag. But are there things that typically people tend to forget, that either you did or generally the people that you met on those race days were like, oh, I can't believe I left this out, or I really wish, other than the M&Ms, as you say? Is there anything else that people were like, oh, I really should have found a space for this one thing?
Yeah, well, one thing I regretted in 2016 was not having Imodium. I ended up with diarrhea, and yeah, it would have been nice to have some Imodium to help that. But apart from that, I think I've always, you know, a spreadsheet for my bag. It's triple checked, quadruple checked. There's not much that you don't really hear of people forgetting to bring something, because people are pretty on top of it, pretty OCD about what they're bringing. One thing that people do say, though, is I wish that I'd added more variety to my pack in terms of food. A lot of people will just be like, I'm having the same gels, the same bars, the same food every day. And by day 3, they're like trying to swap with other people, because your whole palate's just lost the plot. So yeah, that would be the only thing that you really do hear a resounding, is that people need more variety. So that's one thing they wish they had done, for sure.
And draw us a picture, kind of a visual image of like what it's like when you arrive, you know, on that first day. What can people expect?
Well, the heat really shocks you. And I know, you know, you prepare, you think you're prepared, you go into the sauna. Most of us have trained in the UK. So you're coming out of a cold, cold winter, miserable conditions, and the heat just gets you. It just hits you like a fan forced oven when you get there. And it really brings it home that you're going to be out running in this. And, you know, you look around and the desert is just so sparse. There's no shade to be seen. There is nothing to go under except the canopy of your tent. So that really hits home. And yeah, I guess the gravity of the situation, you know, the nerves start to build up in your stomach, and you see all the other competitors and everyone's in all their race kit, and they might be wearing, you know, race shirts from races they've done. And there's that imposter syndrome where you're like, oh, I don't think I'm as good as they are. So yeah, that really hits you. And that first night in camp, when you're having to roll out your sleeping bag and lay in the tent and sleep with your 7 other teammates that you may never have met before, and learning to cope with that, and sleeping out in the desert with, you know, the wind coming through the tent and the sand blowing in your face, and just the whole reality of that situation really sets in. And yeah, you don't get a very good night's sleep the first night, one, because you're nervous, but also, yeah, you're sleeping on the ground. So that is, yeah, super, super tough. And yeah, it just can be a little daunting at the time, for sure. So I guess it's about keeping your mind set and just knowing you've done the training, you've done the preparation, and you just need to go and run your own race and ignore what's going on around you. There will be so many people that will go out ahead of you on day 1, and you know they'll die a death in day 2 and day 3 because they've gone out too hard too soon. So you know, remember, it's a week-long race, so just run your race, and yeah, keep something in the tank for later on in the week as well. And a tip for that first night in camp as well is, because the first night doesn't count, it's not part of your race, and neither is the first morning. So make sure you bring along some fresh fruit. Have some breakfast in the morning, because that doesn't count as part of your weight. So I normally take a tin breakfast for the first morning with a tin opener, and even a blow up mattress. You can get them, you know, 10 quid off eBay, and then leave them behind for the Berbers. They love all the donations. So just give yourself as much comfort as you can that first night before you start racing. Yeah.
And how did you prepare mentally for that race, and what can people expect to be typically those difficult days?
Yeah, well, mentally, I ran a lot in my own spare room, which I set up as a heat chamber. So we had 3 fans going, running on the treadmill, and just preparing for being hot and bothered. Even when it got to that point where you wanted to walk, it was just walking on the treadmill and staying hot and really uncomfortable. And when you're out there, that's the thing, you feel like you're cooking from the inside out. And that's where the challenge is. And you need to decide yourself whether it really is an issue and you need to slow down, or whether that's in your mind, because you know you're out there, you're seeing desert, it's playing on your mind because it looks hot, so you feel hotter than what it really is. So yeah, those challenges are huge. And just I'd always have lots of positive mantras that I'd turn to in my head as well, and thinking about the people back home that are following you. MDS is great because there's webcams at the finish line and those emails you can get. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of people that are following your journey as well. So I find that quite inspiring and motivational to get through those dark moments. But it's a tough out there, and at times you're going to want to sit down on the side of the desert and just give up, but you have to pick yourself up and put one foot in front of the other again. And there's so many amazing people out there from different countries. So make some friends, hook up with people and use each other to get to the finish line. Everyone is suffering out there. That's one thing you'll find. So try and hook up with someone and work your way together to the finish line. There's definitely something to be said for teamwork in these things, even though it's an individual sport. You will find that people will bond together from all different walks of life. So do that.
And going back, picking up on something you said before about, people starting too fast, how, especially for people who are doing something like a multi-stage desert ultra for the first time, I mean, and I'm sure there are lots of people who go out thinking, I just want to complete, not compete. However, in race situations, as many of us know, and typically women, in terms of all the women we coach, one of the problems that people start too fast. So how do you pace, or how did you learn to pace, and did that change from your first to the second?
Yeah, it certainly has changed over the years, I have to say. I think the first time you go out, you are really just thinking of the time, you get caught up in the moment. So now I try to think, you need to feel comfortable, still be able to hold a conversation. You might not be, because people will be racing off, but you should be able to talk, have a conversation. And if it's feeling easy, then just drop it back even just a little bit more. If you get to that last checkpoint before the finish and you've still got some energy in the tank, then give it a push then. But it is just keeping an eye on your heart rate. If you're not monitoring your heart rate just on how you're feeling, RPE, so looking at keeping it below that 5, so keeping it at a 4 or a 3, so it's nice and easy, and then giving it a bit more later on once you settle into a pace. And you will find the terrain's so different, so at times you'll have a nice cruisy jog on the flats, but then when you're in the dunes, you're going to be working super hard, and you're going to have to really change your technique, change the way that you're pacing. And you've got to play to your strengths as well. If you're good at running on the flat, then when those moments come, use them and take the time in the dunes to just slow down and control yourself. And everyone has their different strengths, so you'll be at different parts of the field at different times of every day. So and taking the time when you're in the checkpoints. If you are truly overheating at the checkpoints, take a moment to sit in those tents and get some water on your neck and take your hat off for a minute and just take a moment to cool down. A few minutes isn't going to stop you from finishing the race, but if you head out while you're already in a state of serious heat exhaustion, then that will affect your race and you may DNF. So do take those moments if you need to as well. That's the only shade you get, so you can't change your mind 5 minutes down the road. So take them when they come.
And so we've probably spoken quite a bit about what to look out for when you're there in terms of extra things you need to be thinking about. But to inspire people, what are the absolutely amazing things about the MDS? What are the kind of the sights and the smells? Maybe not the smells, but what are the incredible things about MDS that truly sets not that event apart, maybe, but desert ultras, multi-stage ultras?
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, for MDS in particular, the start line is phenomenal. I get goosebumps thinking about it when they are playing the AC/DC song, Highway to Hell, and they start you off and the music's blaring. There's a helicopter flying above you, filming it, and you're just heading off into the desert. You just feel invincible, like you are a rock star at that moment, until 5 minutes down the road and you can't hear the music anymore and the helicopter's gone. You're like, oh, okay, it's like 40 odd degrees and we've got to run. But that moment, the start line is phenomenal. And when you're out in the desert and just seeing these random things that happen, like you'll just be running through the desert and there'll be some Berber just stood out there with his goats. And, you just you lock eyes for a minute and he's looking at you thinking, wow, what are you doing out here? You're really weird. And you're looking at him thinking, what are you doing out here? This is so weird. And it's just those kind of contrasting moments to your normal life and the camp life, just chilling out in camp on the rest day and in the afternoons where you're just, you're hanging out in your smelly running gear. And it's also normal because all you need to do is run, eat and sleep. That's all you do for the week. And just the views. I mean, I know a lot of people worried about the weight they're taking, but if you can fit in your camera or your phone, because the views from those Jebels, it's phenomenal. Just seeing those sand dunes, where you can't see the end to the sand dunes. They just go on and on forever. It's just so different to our day-to-day life. It's something amazing. And just the camaraderie you build with people along the race, and struggling going through the night section in the desert where you can see the stars, and you see everyone in the distance and behind you with their head torches, and they give you a glow-in-the-dark stick for the back of your pack. It's those sorts of things that you don't get to experience in a normal race. So that is definitely phenomenal. Amazing experience. It will change you for sure.
I was going to say about the night sky. It must be pretty incredible in the desert. It must be absolutely amazing. But also, we've talked about the heat. Presumably, it's quite cold as well.
Yeah, that's the strange thing. You think the desert's hot, and if it surely is during the day, but during the night, if you wake up at 3 a.m, you'll find that it's freezing. It can get down to 0. So you need to make sure you have got enough stuff to keep you warm when you're sleeping. I did find during the night stage, I didn't get cold while I was moving, but certainly as soon as you stopped and you were in your tent getting ready to go to bed, it gets really cold. So it's definitely worth bringing, a long sleeve layer and a little jacket as well. And, if it gets really cold, get your foil blanket out, you're carrying it. Wrap it up around you in your sleeping bag as well. But very contrasting, because it's super hot. And even each morning when you start, like, you'll be shivering in your sleeping bag, and you have to put your shorts and your shirt on to get over to the start line. And you think, I'm cold, I've got goosebumps, I'm shivering. And then in half an hour, there's sweat pouring out of you and you're baking. It's just so weird.
Yeah.
And
so for anybody who is listening to this and maybe is not doing it this year, but might be thinking, I'd love to do a desert ultra, what would you say to them?
Well, just sign up. Just do it. There is never going to be a right time to do it. You will never have enough time to train. You will never have, the right sort of preparation, but you can do the best you can do. And, the timing will be right by the time you get there. I know we all sometimes put off things thinking, I want to be able to have the time to really focus on it. But you know what, while you're fit and healthy and capable of doing it, then just get out there and do it. And there's so many different multi-stages to do. I know MDS can be a little daunting in terms of the cost. It is an extremely expensive race, but there's loads of other multi-stages out there that you can do as well that, are a third of the cost as well, and in different parts of the world. If you're not into deserts, there's mountain multi-stages as well, and, ice multi-stages, whatever takes your fancy. There's loads of opportunities to test it out, and it will just change you. It's an amazing experience. You'll realize that you're much tougher than you give yourself credit for, and much fitter and stronger than you give yourself credit for. So just sign up, just do it.
And then just before we end, I suppose it's quite a good thing to think about. You must have at one point in the race, did you actually think, I'm not sure I can do this, and how did you get through that to the finish line?
Yeah, well, probably in both times I did MDS. The first time I did it with my husband, and so having him there really helped in terms of just having someone there for me, and his positive thoughts of saying that he believed in me and that I could get to the finish was certainly helpful. And then the second time, just having the bouts of diarrhea, but I'd hooked up with my friend Marina, who was also running, and we decided to join forces and run the long stage together. So we were out there all day and all night together, and we had to laugh when you should be crying, because the situation was just so, she couldn't stop peeing. I think she'd had too much salt, and I couldn't stop diarrhea. So we were a great combination, and we just had to laugh at each other and just say, well, the finish line is getting closer. We just keep on muddling through, and you get there in the end.
And how do you think it did change you? I mean, it might be hard for you to say now, because you've obviously done so many things since, like 200-mile races and the 100 miles. So Can you
Yeah.
think back to that time and think how it changed you? Or was it just in terms of thinking it added another resilience block to you thinking, well, I've done that, I can do this, and added another block to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that part of it. But my first multi-stage was the Kalahari, and I went into that race having no idea. You know, I'd run a 33-mile ultra beforehand, and that was it. And just being able to accomplish that, I felt invincible. And you know, I'd never been sporty as a child or even in my teens. So for me, it just really showed me that I was just capable of so much more. And I actually found I took that into my work life. And at the same time that I started doing ultras, I started getting promotions at work, and I was doing better at work. So it's almost like the two things work together. And I think that came from having the confidence and even understanding, because when you're out in these races, you know, it can feel like you're going to die out there. They are very extreme, and they can be scary at times, and you overcome that situation. And when you're back at work and there's a situation, you're like, well, I'm not going to die. Like, there's a little bit of stress, but it's okay. And I think that's what the multi-stage teaches you. It's like, okay, we just need to put it back into simple terms. How do we get through the day? You know, we have to eat, run, and sleep. So in work, what do we have to do? We've got to solve this problem and move on. So yeah, I think it really just helped develop me as a person, and make me much more confident. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's a great way of looking at it. It's a great way of seeing how that helps you in everyday life. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, for
Well,
sure.
brilliant. Thanks for joining me from
Mm.
over in the US. And anybody watching this or re-watching it, we have ultra plans written on the Girls Around the World platform. And obviously Lucia offers one-to-ones as well. So yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Anyone who's watching this.
Yes, good luck.
Or good luck at the race. And we'll obviously be very excited to bring you the results of one of our clients who's training for it.
Yeah,
Enjoy the rest of
absolutely.
your afternoon wherever you are, and speak. Or is it morning? I'm confused.
Morning
It's
still.
morning.
Yeah.
Rest of your day. Cool. See you
Okay.
later. Thanks a lot.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.